We're starting, everyone's coming in, we're starting a new Mishnah on 13b. The art scroll is 13b1. Okay? Now, if you recall, what we learned about last, the last Mishnah. The last Mishnah discussed certain zerot, certain fences that the rabbis made for to protect people from not violating the Shabbat. Right? We spoke about removing certain bugs, shaking out certain bugs from clothing, or not reading at the light of a lantern, lest you may come to move the lantern. Those are some of the things that we learned about in the last Mishnah, right? Those are the. So now comes the Mishnah and says, "Ve'elu min halachot." These are from the laws that were said in the law. Now the Gemara is going to explain that it's going on the previous Mishnah, that these laws that we learned, I mean, I've already given away the answer. The statement, these laws, does it mean the following laws or the previous laws? We'll see. These are the laws that were stated. They were stated in the attic, the upper floor of Hananiah ben Cheskia, the great Rabbi Chaim Cheskia, when they went to visit. You come out a new Mishnah, exactly. When they came to visit the great rabbi, and when they came to visit him, there was the Rambam says in the Pirush HaMishnayot that Hananiah ben Cheskia was the Gadol B'doro. He was the leading rabbi of a generation. Let's say for the Sfardim, Rabbi Vada Yosef, let's say, if they come to visit Rabbi Vada Yosef, and he was, what was he doing? He was in his attic. He wasn't in the yeshiva because we're going to see that he locked himself into the attic, so to speak, because he had a project to work on. He had a project to explain Sefer Yecheskel, which was written many years earlier, which there were certain psukim in Yecheskel that we'll see that on surface they seem to be contradicting the Torah. And Yecheskel was a sefer, a holy sefer from the Navi, the Nevuah, the prophecy of Yecheskel. And the rabbi, they were considering hiding the sefer. They were considering putting the sefer away, that people shouldn't look at it, but they were concerned that people will make mistakes. And he went ahead and he was able to explain it that people wouldn't come to make mistakes. So he was in his attic, staying there, spending day and night, working on this project to explain the Sefer Yecheskel. And the other rabbis of the generation would go visit him. Every so often they would visit the leading rabbi, whose place of where you'll find him in the attic. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Mark, we have a special guest from Paris. Yaron Dahan has joined back.
Wow!
I don't like that. You'll see him soon. Now, and the Gemara says that one of the visits, talking about visits, here's the visit. They came in one of the visits. They had a counting. All the rabbis were there. They came to visit this Rabbi Hananiah ben Cheskia, and they made a counting of who was the majority of the students, the rabbis who followed Beis Shammai, and those rabbis that followed Beis Hillel, and they made a counting, and it came out that there were more rabbis that accepted Beis Shammai than Beis Hillel, and therefore when they made certain enactments on that day. Because we have a ruling called Acharei Rabim, we go after the majority, right? We're a real democracy, so to speak, if that's the right thing to say. We have a lawyer in the house, if that's appropriate to say, right? We go after majority. Majority rules by if you have an argument with the rabbi, so you go what's the majority? So they went to visit him, Vinimnu, and they made a counting. They counted who's the majority. Rabu Beit Shammai Beit Hillel. And Beit Shammai's camp, there was more rabbis that were following the opinions of Beit Shammai over Beit Hillel in this situation, at this time period. And therefore they made certain enactments at that time. Ushmona asa dvarim gozu bo bayom. In that day, based on the majority opinion of Beit Shammai, they made 18 decrees. 18, usually the decrees will be fences, or we'll see what kind of decrees most of them will be fences that they will analyze exactly what they are. The Gemara is coming up, and the Gemara will, and that's what they did on that day. Okay, so now the Gemara says the following: Amalei Abaye l'Rav Yosef. Abaye says, now we're turning the page, we're on 13b2. Abaye says to Rav Yosef, what is the proper text in the Mishnah? Is the proper text Elu Tanan or Ve'elu? Does it say Elu? These are the laws that were stated in the Edict of Hananiah. Now, these, if you say these are, you come to tell me what you're coming to tell me in the future. If you tell me and these are is going back on what it's a climb. It's connected to what we said before. So, meaning we spoke before about certain enactments of not reading by the light of a lantern and not delousing your garment on Shabbat. So the Gemara says, Elu Tanan or Ve'elu Tanan. Is it Elu? Is it these? Is that the correct text? Oh, and these. And now the Gemara explains the difference between these and these. Elu Tanan. If you say Ve'elu Tanan and these, Hani Damaron. That means the ones that we said earlier, those enactments that we said you can't delouse your garment on Shabbat, and you can't go ahead and read to the light of an oil lantern, because you have an oil lamp, you're afraid if you're going to read by it, you might come to move it. If you move it, because if the light is dim, because maybe the oil is not so close to the wick, you might move it, and if you move it because you want to get you'll forget. You might forget at Shabbat. You might, while you're involved in reading, and you might come to move the oil lantern and move the oil close to the wick, and that will increase the fire, and that will be a violation of Shabbat. So if you say Ve'elu Tanan, then Hanu Damaron, that you're coming to tell us that these laws that we mentioned before, this enactment that we said you can't read by the light of a lantern on Shabbat, and also that you can't go ahead and delouse the garment because we're afraid if you're going to do it at the light of a lantern, you might come to move the lantern as well. It means when was this enacted? This was enacted at the time period when they came to visit Rabbi Hananiah. So if it's Ve'elu. Oh, Elu Tanan. Or is it referring to the future future laws that we're going to say? Only the future laws were done in the time period of Hananiah, but not the previous laws. So that is the question of the Gemara. Now the Gemara says the following: Tashma. So come in here. We're going to try to prove what is the proper text of the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, "Ain't Polin la'orhaner." The Braita says you can't go ahead and delouse, shake out the little bugs in your garment at the light of a lantern on Shabbat. You can't do it. The ain't korin la'orhaner, and it says you can't read on Shabbat at the light of an oil lamp, because like we said before, because um, you might come to shake out the bugs, or if that's why you can't delouse it, you might come to move the lantern. And it says, Ve'elu min halachot she'amru ba'aliyat Hananya ben Cheshka ben Goren. And these are, look who's here, Ariel is here too as well. Baruch Hashem. Ariel Maiman is here as well. Beautiful. And these are from the laws that were said, good to see everybody, in the attic of Hananya ben Goron. So we see clearly that the proper text in the Mishnah is Ve'elu. And these, that means the previous two laws that we said that you can't go ahead and, read by the light of a lantern and delousing the garment, these were part of the 18. So now we know these are part of the 18 enactments that were done in his attic. So now the Gemara says the following: Shema Mina. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. We mentioned Hananya ben Cheskia, and now we're gonna say something about him as well. So the first thing we see about him that in his attic we said there was 18 gezerot, 18 enactments happened in his attic, and now the Gemara says the following: Mi katav Megillah Tainet. There is something called Megillah Tainet, a scroll. Good morning, Akiva. Look who's here, Akiva. So who wrote Megillah Tainet? Megillah Tainet is a special scroll that lists in the scroll the dates that miracles happened to the Jewish community. And because of all those miracles that happened to the Jewish community on those dates, they celebrated those dates and they made it like a Yom Tov. One of the very famous Megillah Tainit is the miracle of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is recorded in Megillah Tainit. In that Megillah, it's called the Megillah. It's called the Megillah Tainit. It sounds like the days that you fast, but really it's called Megillah Tainit. Means it's a Megillah of fasting days that you can't fast. It's a scroll of telling you days, just like you don't fast on Rosh Chodesh, you don't fast on Shabbat. What? The days of fast that you can't fast. There's certain days on the calendar, Purim. You don't fast on Purim. These are days, these are holidays, and on holidays you're not allowed to fast. Right? You guy wants to fast on Shabbat, you're not allowed to fast on Shabbat. We saw the concept of a person has a certain type of dream, and he's very bothered by the dream we learned about. He's very concerned about the dream. Then there's and he just had the dream last night. So maybe he has to, if he's really so bothered, he might be able to fast on Shabbat. But then he has to make it up. He has to fast another fast for fasting on Shabbat. He has to fast for doing that because you lose out. You should not really fast on Shabbat. So this is a Megillah Ta'anit that has all the days that you're not supposed to fast. Now, Amru, who wrote it? Who was the author of Megillah Ta'anit? Amru, it's this same rabbi who was in the attic, who made. I should say attic. Sounds like an attic, He was in upstairs. He was in the second floor. Who made the 18 Gzerot? Who was behind? He was that was in his time period when they made the 18 Gzerot, the 18 enactments. He was the one who authored. He and his colleagues, Hananya ben Cheskia v'Siyato, they went ahead and then wrote it. Shehayu mechabibim et asarot. They cherished the difficulties. Now, this is a very interesting language. You cherish the difficulties, you cherish the redemption, right? These represented the redemption. he's represented them coming out of the being saved. But the point was, one of the commentaries explained. I mean, the Marshal asked, why are you saying they cherish the troubles? You should say they cherish the Gula. If you made it into a Yom Tov, if you made it into a special day, a celebratory day that you can't fast, and it talks about in Megillah Tainit, it also talks about the restriction from fasting, and it talks about restrictions from making eulogies on these days because it's a special holiday. I mean, these are days that are not in our Torah calendar. These are not days. The Torah does not talk about the 25th of Kislev, 8 days of Hanukkah that you can't fast, you can't have eulogy. It's not in the Torah. These are new days, new holidays to the Jewish community, and obviously you need great rabbis to enact to say that it has levels of certain levels of holidays in certain respects. Not that they said you can't do work on those days, right? Hanukkah, you're allowed to do work. Not necessarily that they forbade work, but they caused they. So what does it mean? What does it mean? They cherished the tzarot. They cherished it. Here we are standing here on Yud Gimel Adar. Yud Gimel Adar is the day that the Jewish people, that was the day that the enemies, Haman, enacted that we should be destroyed, that there was an edict against the Jewish community that they should be destroyed on that day. That was a tremendous sarah. It was a tremendous difficulty. And then, what'd you say? Yes. And Mashiach will come and we'll all be back together. The man from Paris we'll all be together. So what does it mean they cherish the tzara? They cherish the difficulty. So the Marshal says something beautiful. He says that they accepted the Yisurin. They accepted the difficulties that they were facing with love, and they recognized that Hashem did this to the community. The community was worthy of this problem. Just like the Jewish people, the time of Purim, it wasn't. Why were they faced with annihilation? Because that's what based on their actions, they were faced with annihilation. And because they realized and they appreciated, they recognized that this is the hand of God, and they recognized God's justice and what he was doing. So when they were saved through miracles, they really appreciated the miracle so much. But if somebody does not appreciate, but when the community if they would not have appreciated the decree and not have recognized it's the hand of God, and then they would not have appreciated, they wouldn't be as ecstatic being saved from it. So that's the reason. What does it mean? Well, it means they cherish the tzarot. They realize, it says, Rabbi David Feinstein Zecher Tzaddik L'Bracha said, one of the hardest mitzvot that there is that it says, just like a person says a bracha ala tova, just like you give a bracha on something good that happens to you, you do it with simcha. So too, when something bad happens, you should say the dayin emet with simcha. Be happy with it. Now, it was very holy, right? It's very much harder to accept. I think he once said, one of the hardest things to say the bracha b'simcha with happiness, but to recognize that this is the hand of Hashem, and so if you recognize that, so therefore they recognize that the whole point of the tzara, the whole point that they have the difficulty was to help them do tshuva, help them wake up and smell the coffee and become better. Therefore, they appreciated the gula, the redemption, even more. Amar Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he says the following: that he's like around 5 generations later, after Hananiah, he says, "Af anu mechavim et hatzarot." we also cherish the tzarot. We also recognize and appreciate and recognize the hand of Hashem, and that He's just for all the difficulties that He gave the community. Aval ma na'aseh. What are we supposed to do? If we're going to record the same way that rabbi recorded all those great miracles that happened, then ein anu maspikin. We're not going to be able to make a yantav every day, because what will happen is so many miracles have been happening to us. Every day will be like a Yom Tov, and that's not something that we're able to make every day a Yom Tov, and therefore we're not adding on to this list. And Dova Acher, a different thing. So others say, Ein shoten nifga. A person who's let's say a shoter. A shoter is someone who doesn't know what he's doing exactly. Will go to sleep in a cemetery. He does things that are not, doesn't understand. His level of understanding is very weak. His normalcy is missing, and therefore he's not obligated in mitzvot. Such a person who doesn't understand, who has this lack of understanding. So it's the same way a shoter nifka. He doesn't realize, he doesn't understand how bad a situation is. He doesn't realize he's sleeping in the street and he's homeless. He thinks this is normal. He doesn't realize that this is something that's not normal, but he's shoter. He doesn't understand. He's missing in understanding. So he says, we're also like a shoter. We don't even realize what's going on. We don't even realize all the miracles. We don't realize that are happening to us. We don't realize it. We don't feel it enough. We don't appreciate it enough. So to make it, therefore, we don't make it a Yom Tov, because we don't feel the pain. We don't feel the saving. We're like numb, and therefore that's why we're not making any more, adding more to this list. And Dova Acher, a different approach. So when others say, "Ein b'sar hamet margish b'izmel," if the flesh of a person who's passed away, if you take a sharp instrument, a scalpel, and you go ahead and you take it and you put it against the flesh of someone who passed away, the person doesn't feel it. So because the person is dead. So too, because of all the difficulties we have, the constant difficulties we've been having, we're like a person who's dead, who doesn't even realize, become numb, and therefore become numb to make a holiday on something you don't even appreciate that you were saved from. You don't even realize your situation. That's how let's say people, something, let's say in the Holocaust, right? There could have been every day, there could have been miracles that a guy was able to make it another day, but there's so many difficulties happening every day that they become numb to even realize sometimes all those miracles that happen, that you're able to live another day. So therefore, we don't make it into a holiday. One of the rabbis said that every day we're having miracles. One rabbi said, right. So according to one of the rabbis, maybe one of the rabbis said, you don't feel right. You're supposed to feel what right.
Every day, miracles every day.
Right, and
he's saying if you make every day a miracle, then you're not making a separation of a Rosh Chodesh and a Shabbat from a mundane day.
right. So it seems like there's two different opinions going on here. One opinion was that right. But these are two opposite approaches here. What meaning they're saying it seems to be saying either they're in living in different time periods. That one is saying we have miracles happening to us every day. But it doesn't say they don't feel it. That opinion is saying miracles happen every day, but it's going to be too much for us to make every day into a holiday. So maybe they could, that opinion, maybe they feel it, they realize the miracle, but it's just we can't make every day into a holiday. The other opinion is saying we don't even feel the miracle. So that they're opposing views. Now, is it possible that it's a different time period? But there is warning. But it's saying a total different. It's going the opposite direction. It's saying the reason why we don't celebrate is not because that every day will be a holiday, because we're numb to we don't even feel it. That's what he's saying. But what the Gemara is saying, that Aini is this so. You're telling me, the reason why we don't celebrate all these days is because we're considered like a dead person who doesn't feel the knife. We're so numb to it. So therefore, if that's the case, Aini, is that so? V'amar Rav Yitzchak. Rav Yitzchak said, "Kasher rima lemeit." Worms after 120. If a worm comes to the body of a person, it says that it's very difficult for the body, for the dead person. Now, some of the commentators explain what does it mean it's difficult. It's not what the body doesn't feel. The person passed away. They don't feel the worm. It's that the neshama, the soul of the person, feels pain by the fact that the body, which the soul used to be part of, is being disgraced. What? It's left, but it's still, we know it's still connected. Most probably, we know they've talked about the soul staying, the soul is, different. So we see from the Gemara that it's still connected to the body that it came from. There is things then that they talk about, but the soul, how long the soul stays around the house, but after the person passed away, different levels, the Shiva, the Shloshim. So yes, today is the Yortzeit of Rav Moshe Feinstein. Today is Rav Moshe Feinstein. He passed away on Ta'anit Esther. At the yeshiva at 1:00, the Mashiach is speaking, giving a eulogy today at downtown, the yeshiva. So the Gemara says everyone's invited to attend. So the Gemara says, we say kosher rima, that the worm is difficult for the body. Lamed kemachat basachai, like a needle in a live person. And if you take a live person and you put a needle on the person, it really hurts. So that's the type of pain that a person, that the soul, according to that understanding, is that the neshama has when the worm is eating the body. Kach shenema, as the pasuk says, ach b'soro alav yechav, the flesh will be pained on itself, and nafsho alav taval, the soul, the neshama, will be in mourning for the situation that that the worms are eating the body. So we see that what do you mean? What do you say that? What are you using the parable that the flesh of a dead person doesn't feel? We see the flesh of a dead person. At least the shama, the soul, does feel the pain. Ema ain but basar hamed shebachai. Someone has dead flesh. Raw flesh. In your body. Something. That flesh. You don't feel anything. If something touches that flesh, dead flesh on a living person, doesn't feel anything. So that's what it means. The same way that if you have someone has dead flesh on his hand, and you put a scalp on that dead flesh, or today, if they numb it, the doctor will numb. They want to do a cut. They want to put in stitches. So what do? They first numb it, now it becomes like dead flesh, and therefore you don't feel. Same thing with what does the dentist do, right? He numbs it, that becomes like dead flesh. You don't feel the pain. So too, that is the situation that the Jewish people have because of all the difficulties that the Jewish people have. They That's why they don't feel it. They don't realize. They don't feel all the miracles. They don't appreciate all the miracles. So if they don't feel it, they don't appreciate it. Therefore, we go ahead and we're not making all these holidays. And also that's why these holidays don't pretty much don't exist anymore. Meaning there's many days that were listed in Megillah Tanit that became holidays. The Jewish community, they celebrated it. But now that we're in the Galut, they're in the exile, what? Say it again? I don't remember which ones was that we don't celebrate, but we know the ones that we do celebrate that are there is Purim and Hanukkah are from those rabbinic holidays. Yeah, but that okay, I'm not. That might be also if it's left to see what it says over there. How it's listed. Right, but right, but Megillah Tanit, right, Megillah Tanit generally doesn't exist. It only exists regarding Purim and Hanukkah pretty much from the rabbinic holidays that are left that were listed. I think they said some say there was over 30 days that were listed, right? How many was we should know they should know there's a um but by the way, in the Chai Adam, by the way, Mark, the Chai Adam writes, he talks about 200 years ago about miracles that happened in his town. And he writes over there's a mitzvah. If a miracle happens to a person, there's a mitzvah to celebrate that day, to make that day like Purim. And there's even a bracha, by the way. When you go to the place that a miracle happened to you, you say a bracha. Under certain conditions, whatever, you say a bracha. Baruch Hashem Elokeinu Melech she'asa nes li nes b'makom hazeh. With Hashem's name, there is such a bracha. I'll just tell you, my father had a certain student that he, through his camp, he made Baal Tshuva. He takes his children every year to the camp where it was from 50, 60 years ago. And he says, without the Shem Hashem, Baruch, this is the place that the counselor persuaded him to go to yeshiva. So he says, Baruch she'asa nes l'mokom hazeh. And every year he takes his grandchildren. Is that a great story? Have a great day, everybody. Easy, fast. See everybody upstairs if you're davening upstairs. Thank you. So nice to see everyone back. Let's have a beautiful tefillah. All cell phones away. You heard that? All cell phones away. We're having a beautiful tefillah. Bye-bye, Asaf. Have a great day.